best translation possibly here about this. She played the whore. It kind of, when you read the story, when you look at the commentary, it just infers that it could have been they had a disagreement. They have an argument. She was unhappy and she left. It doesn't mean she was necessarily an adulteress. And because as the story goes on, it kind of insinuates that in some of the points that are made. And she was gone for how long? 4 months. And her husband, this Levite, he's a Levite. What were the Levites typically supposed to be? Priest. Are any of you Levites? Say, we should all be raising our hand. Fathers. So how many Levites do we have in the church here? Gary, that'd be you. That means we're all supposed to be priests in our home, correct? Amen. So her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly. So a question comes to my mind, how was he speaking to her when she left 4 months ago? Because it didn't say they stoned her for being an adulteress, right? He didn't come and say, oh, I forgive you for being unfaithful to me, but he speaks kindly to her. And to bring her again, having his servant with him, and a couple of asses. And she brought him into her father's house. And when the father, his bride, number two's father, takes him, when her father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. So the father-in-law rejoiced to see his son-in-law. Okay, so what is missing here? It didn't say she was rejoicing. It said her father-in-law was rejoicing. It didn't say she was happy to see him after 4 months. Are you starting to get the drift? And the father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him and abode with him 3 days. And so they did eat and drink and lodge there. And it came to pass that on the 4th day, when he arose early in the morning, that he rose up to depart. And the damsel's father said unto the son-in-law, comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and afterwards go your way. And they sat down, and they did eat and drink, and both of them together. For the damsel's father had said unto them, be content, I pray thee, and tarry all night, and let thine heart be merry. Okay, are we seeing a pattern here? And when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him, therefore, and he lodged there again. And he rose early in the morning on which day? The 5th day. To depart. And the damsel's father said, comfort thy heart, I pray thee. And they tarried until afternoon, and they did eat, both of them. So what's the deal here with this Levite? Does the guy not have any manhood in him? Why does he get up to go and he's so easily distracted from leaving? And it concerns me about this part, this eating and drinking and getting married. But I won't make more of that than what's here. But the man is easily sidetracked. And drink. Maybe the grape juice wasn't refrigerated long enough or something. Also, can you think of any other stories in the scriptures where something similar to this had happened? You remember when Abraham sent his trusted servant to go and find Isaac a wife. And, we won't get into that story. And the relatives, Rebekah's parents, tried to get him to stay. And what did he tell them? Oh, no, I'm on a mission, man. I will not be distracted. And they wanted him to stay 10 days, remember? Oh, no. And they say, well, we'll put it up to Rebekah. And Rebekah says, I'll go with him. He wasn't distracted from what he was there to do. I want to go back and dwell on that a little bit on verse 3. Speaking kindly to his number 2 wife that had left. If there's any young women or anybody that hears this, don't pay attention when a prospective husband or wife speaks kindly to you in what we would call the dating game. You'd be better off to look at how they treat their mother or how they treat their father or how they treat the waitress when things don't go good at the cafeteria or the restaurant where you're eating. How do they treat people then? Because it won't be long and they'll be treating you the same way. It doesn't matter what kindly, nicely things they say to you. The life pattern would speak more clearly of how it's going to work for you than what they might say to you. Verse 9. So when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said unto him, Behold, now the day draweth toward evening, and I pray you tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, that thine heart may be merry, and tomorrow get thee up early and on your way, that thou mayest go home. But the man, verse 10, would not tarry that night, but he rose up and departed and came over against Jabeas, which is in Jerusalem, and there were with him 2 asses saddled, and his concubine also was with him. So there's 3 people here in this party. There's the Levite, there's the concubine, number 2 wife, and who else? And the young servant. This is important. Don't forget this. So the Levite finally gets up enough stamina that he's going to leave. But what time of day is it? It's almost night. I mean, this guy, I don't know if he's just not too sharp or what the deal is. He's going to go, but it's almost night. It's almost night. And they're in this part of the world where they're at, they're surrounded by pagans. It wasn't a good place to be when it was in the daylight, much less in the night. But he's going to go. In verse 11, his servant tries to talk some sense into him. And when they were by Jabeas, the day was far spent, and the servant said unto his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn into the city of the Jebusites and lodge in it. And the master said unto him, I will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger that is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. And he said unto his servant, Come, and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or Ramah. So they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were at Gibeah, which belongeth to Benjamin. So he wouldn't listen to his servant's advice. And one thing that really is startling to me about this story here as we progress, and you will see that this Levite lack of the ability, or however you'd want to phrase it, to read the character of his brethren, so-called Christians. It's pretty alarming. So carrying on here, verse 15, and they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge at Gibeah. And when he went in and sat down in the street of the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodge. And behold, there came an old man from his work out in the field at evening, which was also of Mount Ephraim, and he sojourned at Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjamites. I thought that was kind of interesting that here's this old man, that he's a sojourner, so he's a stranger in this town, and he invites this Levite and his wife and his servant to stay at his house. Remember Lot's story? The one about taking in the angels? Lot was a stranger too in that town. Remember, they reminded him of that. So the strangers, the foreigners, are more friendly than God's people? Surely that's not the case today. Is that with us? Does our friendliness button vacillate when either privately or corporately we come into contact with people? Does the way we react to them, is it different? If they smell maybe like tobacco, alcohol, or BO, do we treat them differently than we treat the good-smelling people that we come into contact with all the time? In James, the good Lord tells us that ought not be. Let's see here. And verse 17, and when he lifted up his eyes, he saw a wayfaring man in the street of the city. It means a guy that's traveling. And the old man said, Whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? And he said unto him, We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim, from whence I am. And I went to Bethlehem, Judah, but I am now going to where? Oh, this Levite's going to the house of the Lord. Remember that now. And there is no man that receiveth me. Yet there is both straw and provender for our asses, and there is bread and wine also for me, and for thy handmaid, and for the young man, which is of thy servants. There is no want of anything. So the way I'm understanding this here is the Levite, they have all the provisions they need for a camp out. All they want is a safe place to sleep and a roof over their head. They want an enclosure. So they have everything they need. They just want an enclosure. Continuing on. And the old man said, Peace be with thee. Howsoever let all thy servants lie upon me, only lodge not in the street. So he brought him into his house and gave provender unto his asses, and they washed their feet and did eat and drink. Now, when you wash somebody's feet in these situations, it's not like when we wash somebody's feet downstairs in communion. About the only thing you get in the water at our foot washings is maybe some lint off somebody's socks. Okay? This would be dirty, nasty. Oh, probably the servants did this most of the time, right? Okay, verse 22. And as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, sons of Belial. Well, who is Belial? The devil's brothers and sisters. Oh, Belial. I wrote it down. I looked it up. It says the name of Satan, or the personification of all that is evil. That's ugly. So the sons of Belial, wait a minute, wasn't this a Hebrew city? This wasn't a pagan city, this was a Hebrew city. So the sons of Belial beset the house around about and beat at the door and spake to the master of the house, the old man, the old farmer, saying, bring forth the man that came into thine house, that we may know him. What chapter is this? 19. What chapter is the story about Lot, and this kind of the same thing happening in Genesis? Genesis 19. Judges 19. Isn't that interesting how that both worked out? Bring forth the man that came into thy house, that we may know him. And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them and said to them, Nay, my brethren, nay, I pray thee, do not so wickedly, seeing that this man is come into mine house. Do not this folly. Behold, here's my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them I will bring out now, and ye humble them, and do whatever seemeth good unto you. But unto you this man, do not such a vile thing. So the man offers his virgin daughter and his visitor's number 2 wife. He didn't say he was going to throw out the young male servant. Now something just really, this is getting off just a little bit, but still kind of on topic, that I just cannot believe when I see this on the news. And maybe somebody can explain it to me. You see these young women and men, but I'm thinking about the women now, on the news, from our colleges, from worldly colleges, around the U.S., demonstrating in favor of Hamas and some of these other religious groups over there, demonstrating in favor of that. Have they ever read anything about how they treat women over there? It ain't a whole lot different than this right here. Women aren't women over there, they are property, a possession. And that's how they treated them then, and they still do a lot of that over there. So what woman in her right mind would promote that? I'd say load up and go over there, I guess, if that's what you want. I mean, it's craziness. I mean, it's like insane. But sin is insanity, isn't it? To matter some degree. So we got 3 men offering up 2 women. But the men, the Belial men here, the men would not hearken unto him. So the man, who's the man? The Levite, took his concubine, number 2 wife, and brought her forth unto them. And they knew her, and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day had begun to spring, they let her go. So the Levite, he steps up, and Mr. Hero there and opens the door and throws out his wife. Shuts the door. Are you starting to see the picture why this woman left him in the first place? I'm thinking they didn't sing that song much that Kathy has us sing. The beauty's all around when there's love at home. Surely that doesn't happen in our homes, right? A possession. It's like buying livestock. Today it's our pet, tomorrow we will eat him, right? I mean, like, come on. So they rape this woman all night long, and she dies reaching the door sill, the threshold of the door, trying to come back to who? To the three men that were in favor of pitching her out the door to the thugs. Well, that's kind of a desperate act in itself, isn't it? And then came the woman in the dawning of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was till it was light. And the Lord and her Lord, the Levite, rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, number 2, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. Was there anything startling in that verse right there? There should have been. That first line, her Lord rose up in the morning. So apparently he wasn't having a sleepless night thinking about his wife being out there raped by the mob and beaten. He's sleeping. Snug as a bug in a rug, sleep like a baby. Remember the song Bobby Bell used to do a good job of singing for us? People need the Lord. And he says unto her what? He says unto her, get up. Let's be going. It's time to go home. But none answered. Then the man took her up on the ass, and the man rose up and gat into his place. So she's been raped all night long to death, and he walks out the door and says, get up, it's time to go home. Are you still wondering why she left in the first place? I don't think it was because she was committing adultery. I think her husband was unhinged. So he gathers up his mangled wife and he throws her over a donkey like a sack of beans and ties her on, because when a donkey walks along, or a horse, you got to tie him on. And where did it say he's going? Verse 29, it says when he's coming to his house, it says that he gat him to his place. So he went home. Oh, wait a minute. Where did he say he was going earlier? In verse 18? He said he was going to the house of the Lord. now he's going to his house. Well, I would think he would still be going, of all things, he would be going to the house of the Lord, because that just wasn't where you would have sacrifices and worship service. That was the judicial place where you would go to get things settled, correct? But no, that's not what he does. He goes home. And when he come to his house, he takes a knife and he lays hold of his number 2 wife and divides her together with her bones in 12 pieces and sent her into all the coast. Well, we know they didn't have UPS and they didn't have FedEx, so wonder how this scent thing worked. So he hires 12 guys to take pieces of his mutilated number 2 wife and send it to all the tribes of Israel. Gene, would you say this guy needs some mental help? I mean, this guy is off the charts. And then verse 30, it says, and as it was so that all that saw it, it said, there is no such deed done or seen from that day that the children of Israel came up and put the land of Egypt. So everybody's blown away because of this Levite and all of his dumb choices. And who pays the price? His wife. Of all the godly people in the Bible that we have record of that had more than one wife, can anybody point to one of them stories and say how well that turned out? That God never put his sanction upon that. Never. If it's okay for us to be selfish about anything, this is my speaking. If it's okay for us to be selfish about anything, it's for the affections of our spouse. I didn't say jealous. I said selfish. God made us to have one spouse. So back to this question I've already asked, how could this Levite misread his brethren where he was going to spend the night? You think that was a great surprise to him? That kind of lifestyle was going on there in them cities? I don't think so. I think the scripture tells us by beholding we what? We become changed. And the media does a really good job of that. I quit watching the news years ago. You know, back in the day, it was no Walter Cronkite and them would talk. They'd say, and that's the news. Well, they don't do that anymore. It's talk commentary. They want to tell you about what they think about it. And when we see all this bad stuff happening in front of you, whether it's on the news or it's in a movie or whatever it is, what does that slowly do to us? It conditions us. It hardens us. And then they have these video games and things that people play that are so lifelike. You know, blood and guts flying everywhere. What would that do to you if we watch that kind of thing all the time? It conditions us. And you know it has a great effect because I can't think of one time, and I'm not as old as some, but I'm 65, that I never heard about when I was in schools about somebody shooting up their classmates and teachers by bringing a gun to school. I mean, maybe we were hillbillies, but when we went to school, we had guns in the back window of our pickup on a gun rack. That's just the way it was. We had guns in the back window of your truck. You know what happened today? If you showed up at school with a gun in the back window of your truck, you'd start a riot. And I'm not here to argue plus or minuses on guns, but guns don't kill anybody. Do you know how many Americans die a year from obesity? So you know what the cure for that is? We need to get rid of spoons. Because these spoons are killing all these people. And rocks. Rocks too. We need to get rid of rocks because they kill people. Because in Israel, man, they always had lots of rocks over there, and they were always picking rocks up to kill somebody. So rocks, they need to get rid of all the rocks too because they kill people. You see the craziness of that kind of thinking? When the media and people tell you things over and over and over again, lies often told are what? Soon believed. The guns don't kill people. The spoons don't kill people. People kill people. It's the mindset. It's the absence of God in our society. And for these people to say, that are willing to kill babies. We kill more babies than Hitler ever killed people in our country. And you can argue with me all you want, but I would hate to be standing in your place. Not that I'm perfect or anything close to that. I'd hate to be standing in your place when you have an opportunity to vote for somebody that kills less babies than another one. Amen. Not voting is to vote, people. My grandpa, and he was a pretty wise man, he said, we don't vote to get anybody in. We vote to keep the worst one out. But, this is kind of, what the scripture says, we reap what we sow. When we teach people for years that we're nothing but animals, we people, they eat cows and chickens and everything else that they can get a hold of. So if we're nothing but animals, what's the difference if we kill babies? It used to be if you hit a mother in a car accident, you killed her and she was pregnant, it was manslaughter times 2. But the babies don't matter? Really? I've had an opportunity a time or two when somebody be going on about something, women's rights. I'm all about women's rights. But it's not your right to choose to kill a baby. It's usually your right to choose whether you get pregnant or not. Because God tells us He knows us in the womb. He knows us in the womb. I'm thinking God doesn't say, oh, that's just a mass of cells. Oh, I think He has a name on it. And I think He's going to ask some questions. When the Lord has the judgment going on, there ain't going to be no rebuttals. There ain't going to be no argument. If we're saying anything, all we're going to go, yeah, you're right, Lord. You're right. But back to our story here. The atrocious way this man sacrificed his wife and this other farmer sacrificed these ladies. When God says we're supposed to love them, how? Like God loved the church. And He gave His life for the church. That's kind of serious, isn't it? But on a little bit of a lesser scale, how much do we love our wives? When we get home, do we plop ourselves down in the chair and wait for her to get lunch on the table? Then we wander out there to eat, and if everything is to our satisfaction, then we're happy. But if it's not, we have maybe a little cutting remarks. Well, I think you could burn water. Or some snide comments. Is that loving your wife like you're willing to die for her? Then we stroll off to the living room to get back in our chair while she cleans it up. It's no more her job to clean the house and cook than it is mine or yours. There's less dishes if she's there by herself, so they're just as much. Housework is not woman's work. It's our work. We all live there. It's amazing how people think, oh, well, she works out of the home the same as I do, but she comes home and is supposed to do all these things. You know, when Corey was just an infant, Jenny was in a contract that she couldn't get out of in her work. So I quit as a diesel mechanic for the Mac dealer. So I quit work for almost a year to take care of Corey. Jenny says that's why we're so tight. Being a housewife, even if you don't work out of the home, is hard work. And it's thankless work. At work, you get a check. At home, you don't get a check. It's never done. I kind of flip this around. Pastor Kanzler is the one that taught me this, for better or for worse. A woman works from sun to sun, but a man's work is never done. But I think it's the other way around. A man works from sun to sun, but a woman's work is never done. With all the laundry, all that stuff that goes on. It's hard work being at home. And we should appreciate our wives more. I've been married for almost 40 years, and it just gets better and better. Hopefully she says the same thing. Does your wife rejoice when you show up? Or is she happier when you're not there? You don't have to raise your hands. You know, we're a mess. We're broken. We're twisted. And we need the Lord. But you know, there's one thing, if not others, that we're going to have to get a handle on to be in the kingdom. Is we have to. This is imperative. This isn't a maybe. This isn't, take a shot at it. This is imperative. We have to learn to see people for what they could be. Not what they are. Jesus, what did he call Peter? A rock. Peter was anything but a rock. Peter was anything but firm. Peter was fluid. He was all over the place. And he was still a disciple of Jesus. But Jesus saw what he could be. And when he became fully converted, are any of us fully converted? No, but hopefully we're working on it. When he became fully converted, then Jesus said, feed the sheep. Jesus saw what he could be, not what he was. And that's what we have to see in people. We need to look past what is and look for what they could be.
Look upon Jesus, sinners is he. Hi friends, Pastor Doug Batchelor. It's time to make your plans and mark your calendars to attend our 3rd annual Amazing Facts Youth Conference. The dates are